something else. Oh, hey, yeah, so we're live. And he's like, oh.
It's just kind of part of the routine now, you know. I'm kind of used to it. It doesn't really bother me at all. I actually kind of like it.
Too many concurrent sessions. Try
part of the
closing.
charm.
What do you mean too many sessions?
What do you mean?
Try closing other recording softwares that might be using NVENC, such as NVIDIA Shadowplay or Windows 10 Game DVR. Bruh.
What?
I'm just trying to record this locally so I can extract the audio. I mean, we're live right now because this is how I do my thing. But we also have to record it locally or else I can't upload this.
Fine.
I love all your guys' thumbnails.
Thanks.
I love that.
Too many concurrent sessions. How many sessions do I have? All right, people, if you are joining into us live right now, having some technical difficulties.
Part of the course.
Are we gonna talk about like are you guys gonna, well, I guess it depends on Max. I don't know if you saw the movie yet. Do you guys talk about movies?
Yeah.
I feel like you do.
What movie?
Black Panther.
Oh, it got spoiled for me, so we can totally talk about it. I just haven't seen it yet.
No, I don't. I don't want to double spoil it. I'll talk about it if it gets brought up.
All right. Gonna try some to see if this will help us out. Look for... Stop. Look for... NVIDIA SMI.exe. The heck is that? I don't have that.
Trying to get into your computer. Maybe.
Yeah, the stream might
All
just
your
like
video
close
games?
itself out, so I'm just closing out things.
All
Okay.
your video games belong to us.
You will never get them back.
Oh, come on. I don't know how to record the audio this way. Think, Tyler. Think.
I don't know if you guys ever check these ring alerts, but they are so popping sometimes.
Oh, I know what I can do. Man, our audience is getting the fun stuff if they're watching us live.
Audacity. Oh my gosh.
All right. I'm going to make one track. Add new stereo. Is it a stereo track? I don't remember. Ah, jeez. Okay, and then I'm going to do another one. I think it's stereo. Rate. Spectrum. No, I need you to be... No. Oh, bother.
The error just keeps saying that NVIDIA.xex was open.
Yeah, it's just like too many instances.
It's
Too
weird.
many concurrent sessions. Try closing other recording softwares. I don't have any other... I mean, like, I have Discord, but it's never been an issue.
Right.
Let me... Oh, you know what? Maybe it was my screen share. Oh, I just lost Peter. Oh, now I'm on there twice. Ah, jeez.
Oh no.
Hold on, folks. Max is over. No, now I'm messing me up. Hold on. There's Max. Hey, there he is.
Hey.
This is what happens when you do independent, you run your own independent show.
Have y'all decorated, Max?
What'd you say, Peter?
Have y'all decorated, Max?
Oh, yeah. We've already got all our Christmas stuff up. I don't have any Christmas stuff for my office, unfortunately. I have to do something about that. Maybe get some holly or tinsel.
The halls with boughs of holly.
Oh,
All right. Now let's see. Start recording. Yes. Okay. It was because I was screen sharing in Discord. All right. Well, we have been live successfully for 5 minutes and 16 seconds. So, Max, why don't you kick us off with the intro of the podcast?
well, we're 5 minutes in. We're back, baby. What's up, everybody? We are calling all nerds, and you have answered the call, the beacon in the sky, if you will. We are your friendly neighborhood hosts that talk about everything from the entertainment zeitgeist, and we are so excited to talk to you guys about some amazing stuff tonight. We have been gone for a very long time, but we are now back for episode 19 with an additional host joining the ranks, our good friend Peter Mizey. I don't know which side of me he's on because I can't see the three screens. Is he on my right? I don't know.
Yeah, there you go. You had it. You're a pro.
But I'm very excited because we are actually attempting to do a lot of new things come 2023 and really just for the next few shows that we end out the year with. But Tyler, I'll take it over to you if you want to kind of talk over what you wanted to talk over on kind of how we're thinking of doing the show moving forward.
Yeah, so into the news. I always like to give some updates if there are any for the podcast. One major one is that we are no longer on Simplecast. We found a service actually through Julie called Anchor. It is a Spotify sponsored or maybe Spotify created. It just says Anchor by Spotify, but it was free. And so this service should help us out, obviously monetarily speaking. And then what does this mean for you who are listening? Well, if you are listening to one of your podcast services of your liking, that means nothing changed because that means we were able to successfully continue it on, Spotify, Apple Podcast. If anything, this should make our outreach a little bit better. I am getting Google Podcast set up. There are options for Amazon Music and iHeartRadio, but I don't know if that has like a money thing for those services in particular, but I think Google Podcast is at least free. So that'd be cool if we could add that to our arsenal. So you'd be able to listen to us on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcast, as well as Anchor has their own, listening site as well. I don't know if they have an app, but anyways, more to come on that. And then also, the way that Anchor helps us is that there are opportunities to where we can have subscriptions from you all as fans if you are interested, similar to like a Twitch subscription. Nothing like that is set up. This is all things that are just kind of eligible to us that we will more than likely look into in the future. But things like that, as well as, there's opportunities for ads and all this other kind of thing. But again, what does it mean for you as the listener at home? Honestly, nothing. Like I said, if you are listening to us through the podcast site of your liking, then it all went smooth. And then lastly, one thing that Max and I, before we get Peter to do some introductions, so start thinking about those. One thing that Max and I have been thinking about is expanding the Calling All Nerds podcast subcategories, maybe is the right term. So if it has been not fully known to people, the podcast itself is technically called Calling All Nerds. That is like the podcast name. And then above my head right there is Nerd Alert. So it's like Nerd Alert as is the subcategory of Calling All Nerds. And so what we want to do is expand that to other things. I myself am looking into starting a Pokemon one, and it's still going to feature like Max and Peter will probably be there sometimes, but it's just like other mediums to where we can try to like have new shows, but also focus on specific things. So far, Nerd Alert has been everything, which is still fun. Like Nerd Alert itself isn't changing as a core. It may become more focused on maybe like gaming stuff per se, which I feel like it already has been anyways. So there's, you may not really notice that big of a difference on it, but we're thinking about doing a Pokemon podcast. So it would be Pokemon the main thing. There may be like a film podcast where it just focuses on film, books. things like that. So that is what is to come for 2023. We're hoping to do something like that. Also, just to give us like our own outlets. Like if Max is wanting to, I don't know, like review a book, right? And he wants to do it and talk about it, but it was a book that only he read. So he's like, well, I'll just, do a review on it. It just like gives us those opportunities, especially with like all of us having such wild schedules that may not always collide. It kind of just gives somebody the ability of like, hey, kind of just want to record this and put it out there. Will they always be live? They may not be. Some of these subcategory streams may be podcast site only, where someone just records the audio and then we'll just post it out there. You'll still get your notifications. You'll still be under the Calling All Nerds. So if you follow Calling All Nerds, you will see all of these. I think Max and I talked about just taking the current logo that we have and just like changing the chroma of it. So right now, orange is the Nerd Alert one. Maybe purple will be Pokemon, green will be something else. So it'll be like a visual representation for you as the listener to understand like, oh, I see that green, that green logo is popped up there. That means Max is talking about a book this week, or, oh, I saw the purple one. There must be a Pokemon podcast live. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff. We're figuring out all the kinks and seeing how things are going to work out, but that is what we are wanting to do. So yeah, those are the two major things, trying to expand. And then we are now using Anchor instead of Simplecast. But yeah, so those are our updates.
That was perfect.
Thank you. So Peter, as you can see, this is our first time having him as our guest on here. Peter is a longtime fan and friend of the podcast and just us in general. We wanted to get him on here because our main topics today are really just like games that we've been playing. And there is one game in particular that the three of us has played. And but before we get into those, Peter, why don't you just tell the audience a little bit about yourself? What makes you a gamer?
Oh, man. What makes me a gamer? Well, I have pretty much always grown up with games. And I have collected so many of the consoles. And I just love them to death. They're just one way that I can always just find myself and always just experience like so many different forms of entertainment, and they're always just such a joy in my life, and I love sharing them with others. Well, so I'm super happy to be here. I feel like I need like a Calling All Nerds related introduction, like I'm swooping in.
I've answered the call.
Exactly.
I am here. I saw the beacon in the sky. It was a big P.
And I'm here. Oh my gosh.
Cool. Well, thanks, man. Yeah. So Peter, like I said, has been a long time friend of the both of us, pretty much a brother at this point. So we are happy to have him here. So yeah, like I said, we are going to be mainly just talking about the games that we've been playing. We usually do kind of like an end of the year, like what we feel like is like our game of the year. That's not today. That's to come though. So if you're interested, make sure to follow, do all those other things, and you'll be interested into that. So as far as the games that we've been playing though, one that the three of us have all been playing has been God of War Ragnarok. My time on the game has gone down just a tad, but I still have gotten a lot into it. It's like not a lot, but a lot of play time because it's very like,
you're like checking every nook and cranny.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. So, I guess like to kick things off, we'll start with Max. So Max, first impressions. You could like not necessarily summary of the game, but like what is your first impressions, and we'll just like go down the line.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, the game's okay. No, what are you talking about? This game's a masterpiece. It's absolutely phenomenal. There's a reason it's getting 10s out of 10s everywhere, just like the first game. It's absolutely insane to me that they hit lightning twice. I'm very excited to continue on in the game. I'm honestly, just like you said, Tyler, Peter's probably farther along than the rest of us. I've only gotten about 8 hours of playtime into the game. But within that time, I have gotten, I would say, hopefully kind of far. I'm in Alfheim at the current moment. But the game has just been absolutely incredible. The story is so well done. Christopher Judge, who is the voice actor for Kratos, is absolutely phenomenal. He has, like, in my opinion, he's the shoo-in for best vocal performance for the Game Awards next week. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to win.
Yeah.
He's just that good. And
did he win on God of War 2018?
I don't want to say with full confidence that he did. I don't believe he did. I think Arthur Morgan from Red Dead 2 won.
I respect that. I respect that.
I respect it too, because he was phenomenal as well. But I think this is his year. I think this is the year that he wins it. And you know, I've been really enjoying the game so far. I've gone through a few realms within it. It is very much just kind of picking up right where the first game left off, both graphically and combat gameplay wise. I would say there are some differences in the combat. I would almost say it's more Dark Souls-y now in some ways. I feel like the combat is a lot harder than in the first game, I would say. In the first game, I felt like I could do a lot more just like hacking and slashing. This time, I had to literally turn the difficulty all the way down to give me grace or whatever the title of it was, because I was just like, I'm dying from like these like little like just the smallest of hits, and so the game is very challenging, but in a good way.
Yeah.
The story is incredible. Like I said, I'm just very excited because every moment that's occurred for me so far in the story, where I would predict of something that was about to happen, my expectations were flipped, where something would occur and I think, oh, okay, this is what's going to go down. And it's the exact opposite. Or it's something that I never would have expected, or it's something that I didn't think that they would just, you know, say outright, and they absolutely do. And I love when games can do that for me, when they just, because it makes me feel like I have no clue what's going to happen around the bend. And this is Ragnarok, right? Like, this is kind of the end of the Norse mythology story of God of War. So I have no doubt there's going to be more games after this, and most likely we are going to go to other mythologies. I'm foreshadowing that. I don't know that for certain, but in my head, that kind of just seems the way that we're going to go about this. But it's definitely my game of the year so far this year. I mean, it's no question whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say first impressions of the game is great for sure. Obviously have not beat the game. I just left out of I guess technically the second zone, but like the first like fully explorable zone, which if you've played the game, that makes sense. But so yeah, not too far. So like first impressions have been, yeah, graphically it looks just as good as I thought it was gonna look. Story seems really good. They have surprisingly developed the characters that we already have grown to know and love within just a few hours of playing the game, which I think is pretty incredible that they've been able to do that in such that short time. And then I think like one thing to note is that it's good and I'm not surprised. Like one of my impressions is that, yeah, I'm not surprised that this is good. Like I had like really high expectations for this game, and it is definitely meeting them. Like Max said, though, I would say the only thing that has surprised me has been like the difficulty, but it's weird. It's like sometimes the combat difficulty is insane, but the puzzle difficulty is like really easy. It's really odd. It's like a very weird dynamic. I don't know if there was like a struggle to figure out like what was a good happy medium, but yeah, like Max said, I put my difficulty all the way down to the easiest just because I knew, well, my time on this game is low because like Pokemon games and other stuff came out. So I was like, I might as well make sure the combat's easy for me. Which even at the lowest difficulty, there still have been some challenges. But then like the areas that I do like a challenge would be puzzles. And we could talk about more about what that is, but there's just some problems with it that has been a little bit sad. So There hasn't been many though things that have made me annoyed. I think that's been literally like the only part. So first impressions is definitely like I would assume that this game from me at the end of it's probably gonna get like a 9 or a 10. So
Do you mind if I piggyback off of something you just said, Tyler, that I think was really great?
Yeah,
you
for
mentioned
sure.
that with the dialogue, even within like, because it sounds to me like you're with a little behind where I am, but like possibly still like 5-6 hours in. If that sounds right, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think one of the reasons why this game is so good at its storytelling is it never wastes a natural moment for these characters to interact, like to speak to each other. And so there's never like a dull moment in the game because you're constantly either in combat, solving a puzzle, or just listening to the rapport between Atreus and Kratos and Mimir and other characters that you meet along the way, both old and new. And there's never a dull moment in that sense because you're kind of hanging on every word because everything that they're talking about in some way is developing their relationships. It's developing the story, the odds, like the different odds that Kratos and Atreus may be on when it comes to how they want to proceed in this specific scenario that they're in. It's just such good storytelling, in my opinion. Some of the best I've seen. Just like the first game was. It is very much like where in the first game, you know, it was a lot more harsh between Kratos and Atreus because they did not have a bond. They didn't have anything, really. And so, but by the end of the game, they had warmed to each other, and it's so cool to see, even within the opening hours of this game, just how far they both have come as father and son.
Yeah.
And it brings a smile to my face because it's just like, wow, like these two have really become a pretty great couple. I'm sure that bond is going to be tested in this game. I'm sure that they are going to go through some strife, of course. I have no clue what's going to happen though, which makes me even more excited.
Yeah, for sure. No, yeah, that's a good call out. So Peter, what about you? What would be your first impressions of the game? Good, bad, amazing?
I just love that they have this amazing introductory formula, like since the very first game not the very first game, but the last game that they had with this like crazy sort of like I guess just to clarify, are we doing spoilers on this?
Yeah, because we haven't beat the game, so
Okay.
like we're all only a few hours in.
Yeah, it's just like talking about like just the very very beginning that we've all been through. Just
That's
like
fine.
Thor, like just that whole sequence, and it's, you know, sort of throwing you into it, just like they did in the game before with Baldur. Like,
Oh yeah.
it's just that is such a fantastic way to start a game. Like, and it leaves me anticipating it as soon as I started this game. I'm like, what's going to be the crazy thing that's going to happen? Because I know that's what they did in the last game, and just what they did was amazing in this one.
Yeah.
Just as amazing. And yeah, I will say I definitely have experienced the difficulty. Like, I really wonder if they did it just because they knew that their audience was going to be like hardened after playing the last game, and so that they wanted to make this like just a tad bit more challenging, but maybe they amped up the juice just a little too much.
What difficulty are you on?
I'm still on normal.
Okay.
And I think I've died like countless times on every single, not even bosses, but like just like in the middle of like group fights. Like, and it makes me feel like a little sad because it's like, man, I can't watch Kratos die. Like every time there's always like something somebody says like when Kratos dies, and it's like no, this would never happen. Kratos is too strong for this.
You know, I like that you bring that up because that's one of the things sometimes that's like how I justify when I play these games and I lower the difficulty, where I'm like I'll be playing and I think I am technically the god of war I should just be cutting these people up like it's nothing. And so I'll just like lower the difficulty. I'm like, yeah, this just makes more sense.
I should feel like nothing is a challenge right now.
Yeah.
other than like main bosses.
Yeah.
What's funny too that you mentioned, Peter, because I feel like when it comes to like gameplay combat, you're probably the best out of all three of us. I would feel like you are like the Souls guy, and if you can beat Souls games, I feel like combat in games is probably probably not that bad anymore once you've beaten a few of those games. I don't know, but one thing I think that's really funny, and honestly, I haven't died too much in the game because I'm a big baby and kind of stay away from enemies, but like, is it still like in the first game where if Kratos dies, it's like he's been hit by the Petrificus Totalis spell and he just gets all rigor mortis and then he just falls over and slams on the ground?
That is such a good description.
Look, it's so unnatural. Like, he just goes like,
it's really weird.
Yeah, he goes stiff and then just falls back.
Yeah, it's just like, okay. It's so funny, but like, yeah.
And they have the item, which, if I'm being honest, I don't know if I died in the first game to even remember if this was an item, but there's like the revival item that you can buy. And so like, yeah, if you die, you pretty much get like stim packed by your son. And then the thing is though, there was a fight that it looked like a lightning lizard to me. And so I'm fighting this thing. I get wrecked and it's still like doing its thing. Like it wants to fight while I'm dying, just like how Dark Souls does, where like they'll be like emoting on your body when you're dead and you're like, I'm dead, I get it. But like, so then Atreus comes up, he just stabs me, I come back to life, but then this lizard thing is still like ready to go. So by the time I get up, I am like smashing dodge so much on my controller, but I don't get it in time, and he just one-shots me. And I said, well, what was the point of that item? Like, why did you tease me with this thing? I was just gonna die again.
I think one of the things that is making combat more difficult too is they changed the parry system. Yeah, like they changed the whole shield system, at least for right now. Maybe we get our old, Greek shield back later on from Brock. I don't know, but like, I don't think so, because it seems like this whole new, armor set is that you have differentiating shields. You have either a large shield that is mainly more so for blocking, and then a parry shield where it's a little sharper. And at first I was like, I'm just going to get the parry shield because that's what I was used to in the first game. And I found that like when I parry in the game, it's a lot harder to actually parry in this one, because you'll see the yellow alert saying that like, oh, they're coming for you. And then there's like just like in Dark Souls, there's a delay, some sort of delay in the movement of the enemy, and if you parry too quickly, you'll miss, and then they hit you anyway. And it's different for every enemy set, which is cool. But in the first game, it was so much easier to parry because you just kind of did it, and the game kind of just automatically parried whatever was coming your way, which I feel like is a better way to do it, but it's not easy for someone like me to handle that. So I've found myself veering more towards the bigger shields that are more so for defense than parrying, which I didn't think I would have to do, but I definitely had to do that.
Yeah, there's even parries that I've seen where it counts as like you can really do extra damage output by parrying, because a parry will happen and then he'll throw like his shield at the enemy, like, and that will do like a significant amount of damage. So it's like, and I think there's even like a shield that I had equipped that was like a high risk, high reward type parry that helps create those scenarios. And these parries, I feel like some of them are totally invisible. Like some of them, I think they do give you a cue, or it's like you know that their arm's coming. But then some odd creatures, some of them are like really difficult to identify. Like,
Yeah, they have some visual cues, like they have the red visual cue where it's like you gotta dodge this bad boy, or else like
you can't block.
you can't block it. It's like you gotta dodge this, and then like that yellow cue is the hey, you better like parry this. But I do feel like there is not always the most accurate. I think too, for some shields, like the shield that I use just absorbs damage, and the yellow ones you can like absorb them up to a specific amount, and and that type of deal. But one thing I was curious about that I wanted to ask you all is about the weapons themselves. So in the first game, we get very attached to the axe, right? Leviathan axe is like the axe that you have in the beginning. You don't even have Kratos's blades, and you play the game definitely well past halfway before you finally get his chaos blades back. Whereas in this game, you have them right away. You do literally like a itsy litsy bit of just only the axe, but that's literally just walking to your cabin, right? And then you get him in back anyways when you like leave. And so it's like, what do you guys find that you use the most? Do you find that you have like an easy balance of like, oh, I switch between them? Do you favor one? Or like, what's your experience with that? I've just been like curious to hear what people thinks.
I tend to favor the blades, just because they allow. I don't know. It's weird because they're both long range in a sense, but the chains of Olympus are. I don't know if that's the right word for his weapons, but they are naturally more long range than the axes. Axe has close combat, but then of course you can also throw it. With the chains, I actually have found that I'm using them more because especially in this game, with the abilities that you can unlock is about juggling. And so like you juggle the enemy with the chains, and like you're able, if you can get them in the air, you can continue to hit them with different abilities and keep them in the air where they can't move, and you just continue to deplete their HP at a wondrous pace. But one thing I have gotten used to that at first I wasn't sure I would like is, the game rewards you by giving you tiers based on how often you use certain abilities. So like every once in a while you're fighting, you'll get, you'll get some sort of HUD, like a HUD thing that says, axe throw, silver tier, saying like you've thrown your axe at an enemy 100 times.
Oh yeah.
And it's actually gotten pretty cool for me where it's like, oh, okay, like I'm going to focus on using these 3 abilities between the chains and the axe so that I can get those to gold tier. And then at that point I can then either, you basically can change between, I don't know if either of you have gotten a skill to gold tier, but when you do, you can then actually use your experience points on that skill again, and you can give it an extra boost in one of 3 ways. You can either increase your stun on that ability, increase the damage, or health back to you, like almost like or this like special like, and you can change it in between. Like you only have to pay your experience once for that, gold tier. And then at any point you can go back into that ability on the skill tree and just say, you know what? Instead of extra damage on that ability, I want to move it to increase stun by 10% or something like that.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's like an extra like customization of all of your skills. So it's like a great incentive to use all of your different abilities so that once they all have reached gold tier, then you can make them even more powerful, which then makes you more, relative to survive. But it's very much like how do I, and it's another reason why it's definitely important to do all of this like side quests, is like how do I get enough experience to level up all of my tiered abilities, buy the abilities, level them up to gold tier, and level up my light and heavy arts, for the different weapons, because all of those things cost experience points. But the game does a very good job of juggling between the two, I would say.
Yeah. What about you, Peter? Do you favor the axe or the blades?
I definitely favor the blades more. Although they have this system, I don't know how much they're going to use this system, but they have that fire and ice type
Um,
system going on now,
where it's
where
like if it's ice, it'll like fire will do more if they're frozen
right.
or yeah.
Yeah, I like
That's
that
an
though.
interesting mechanic. I imagine they added that just because you get to start off with both, and they knew like people would be like, everyone's gonna want to use the blades
Yeah.
because like
They're cooler. Like they are arguably cooler.
They are, yeah.
um uh and I love the juggling part. I like that you mentioned that, Max. Like it's more floaty. It's AoE. And
You can really see that they directed the abilities for the chains to that of like, hey, like you should be using these abilities to make them float, to get them juggled into the air. Yeah.
know,
I also feel like
the more
AoE too, right? Like they do like
Yeah.
more AoE damage than anything else because they can like spin and all that kind of jazz.
Right.
the more they float, the less you get hit. So I mean, I just feel like that's super nice. I will say, I guess, like it's like in boss fights, like with the chains being very area based and like group fight based, bosses still seem to like make you rely on the axe because it just is more of a single target, long range, slower, allowing you to like think about your shield more type of thing. So it is interesting.
Yeah. There are some instances. I mean, puzzles wise, you have to like use your axe to freeze certain things. You have to use your blades to cross certain ravines and swing and whatnot. There are some bosses who their weaknesses might be like a small thing on their head, and like it's easier to throw your axe at it because the chain does have a limit to its distance, and like if you're not wanting to be that close. But yeah, I asked that just because I was curious about what others were thinking, because I do feel like myself have been very attached to the Chaos Blades, and I'm like, man, sometimes I forget I even have the axe. And it's kind of like, to me, it's like, man, it's kind of a bummer that they give you two weapons, and it's like, oh, I just like favor one over the other. And but like my time with that axe was so great on like the first game, and now I'm just kind of like, axe what? Like, what is this thing? I just, especially because and this may change in the later zones, but the first zone, there's those like annoying little critters that are all over. They don't have that much health, right? They die pretty easily, but there's a ton of them that come at you. And like when you have just the axe, you can really just kind of target one at a time. So with the chains where you're like whipping them around, it's just easier to like get rid of so many of those monsters at one time. So it feels like sometimes, yeah, combat is like almost forces me to use the chaos blades, which I'm fine with because I love those things and they're really enjoyable. But you know, it's just interesting with a game where it's like, yeah, you have two main weapons. Which will you use? And they are doing like a good job to try to get you to utilize both of them, like what Peter said, with where specifically on the axe, if the enemy is burned, your axe will do more damage, and then with the blades, if they're frozen, the blades will do more damage. So it's nice that they added that kind of balance into things. But so so puzzles wise, and we'll start with Peter. How have you felt that the puzzles have been? This has been kind of a hot topic in the internet space amongst people claiming that the puzzles are too easy, or that they are told to you like, hey, do this too quick. How have you felt going through the puzzles? Because you still have encountered a lot, even though you're only like a segment in, right?
Yeah, I I will say like the first open area zone that you get to, um, like I think specifically to like I think there was this one example that we all talked about at one point where it was something about like raising and lowering a platform, and like if you immediately are like even like the area you're in is just like this, it's the like the furnace type thing, and you just get done with your group fight, and you're like trying to look what to do, and then it was I wasn't even like looking for a puzzle. I wasn't even looking for a puzzle.
Yeah.
And then I think I got done with the fight, and then suddenly it was just like, maybe you should try lifting or lowering the crate or whatever. And I'm like, what? And then I look for a crate, and then I'm like, oh, I guess I'll interact with this. I wasn't even.
You're like panning your camera, and they're already like, "You're in a puzzle," and you're like, "I haven't even processed that I just killed a mini boss. What are you talking about?"
And so, but at the same time, I will say, I think on that same platform, if I remember correctly, there was one of those chest puzzles where you get the apples from, usually the apples of Idun.
Yeah.
And those still, and they always gave me problems in the last game.
Yeah.
Those still make me search for hours and me pull my hair out, because those symbols that you have to find, usually, like, even though it's like in a pattern, I always find like 2 of them, and then the third one I'm like, oh my gosh, I probably, like, it's probably in an obvious area that I just glimpsed over, and now I don't know whether to look in the simple areas or if it's a complicated one. So I can spend a lot of time, and I think one particular one really difficult one for me was Artreus has that new move or ability that was very subtle that they gave him, where it like explodes like green things.
It's like supersonic kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yes, and there was like one particular symbol that was hidden behind 2 green boxes on a platform at the very back of the map, and like the green parts of it were so subtle on those barrels. The only reason I looked at those barrels is because I looped around the map like 3 times, and they were the only unique, like the only barrels of that type out of the whole map. And so it finally caught my eye. I'm like, there's got to be something to do with these barrels. It looks like you can get behind them or something. And that's when I realized I could blow them up. And I'm like, my goodness.
Yeah. So it seems like on some puzzles they hold your hand to an extreme, whereas like collectible puzzles, it's like free reign. Like they'll do things like, oh, we probably can't be here right now, and come back, which I appreciate that. I like that if I'm somewhere and it's like, hey, you don't have the unlockable yet. Well, cool. You just saved me probably like an hour of me wasting my time. So thanks for that. But then like other collectibles, like sometimes getting rid of Odin's birds or crows, whatever they're called, sometimes those are challenging. You gotta like time the throw well, like that can take some time. And those chess puzzles can be very difficult. So I guess it is like a balancing act where it's like, oh, we've made some really easy, we've made some like really hard. But what about you, Max? How have you felt? Like, because I know you're really into doing puzzles on games a lot more. So it's like, how have you felt? Like, do you feel like it's been too easy for you? Do you wish it was a little more challenging, or has it been like fine?
Honestly, like it's honestly pretty fine for me, because honestly, whenever I play games, I usually follow a guide, like an online guide, because I'm a completionist. Whenever I go through a game, I want to see absolutely everything it has to offer me. So I normally play through any of my games with a game guide online from like NeoSeeker or GameFAQs, and literally just get everything that there is to do. So I do love puzzles, but I normally already have the answer in front of me of like how to complete the puzzle. So I'm very much not as hardcore about them as probably you two are, which is I think in some ways to my detriment. But I'm such a person that I'm like, I never like to miss anything if I can help it, kind of thing, that I just do it that way. I think because of that, I'm able to get through the puzzles very quickly in the game. And so I haven't had the issues of like the characters interacting like that that you guys probably have had. So, but I could totally see that happening, just because there are other areas I've found. I don't know if either of you have gotten to Alfheim yet, but basically when you're there, anytime you go off like the beaten path from like where the main party is telling you to go, there is dialogue very much of like, hey, where are you going? Like, that's not the right way. Yeah, I know. Like,
I'm trying to explore.
Right, I'm trying to explore. It gets a little grating sometimes, even though they do play with it a little bit.
Yeah.
Which I like. But yeah, I would say that, they're kind of trying to overcompensate, I would say, in a lot of ways, where it's like, kind of like how we were talking about, where it's like very natural, these conversations to have when you're like, in a boat rowing somewhere, or even when you're just walking through an area that doesn't have anything going on in it. It's those moments where the game is like, it just feels that the game is constantly trying to move you through the story, just like constantly kind of pushing you. You can almost feel that.
Yeah.
And I like that sense of urgency in some ways, but at the same time, it's like, just give me a minute to breathe. Like I just like, I want to look around for a second.
Yeah, I know when you're like searching for Tyr, specifically maybe even like the last door to like find him, there was like an area that I wanted to go to make sure like, oh, I bet there's an item down here, which there was 100% an item. And I'm walking down there and like Atreus is just like, well, we still have to like go back to the door, right? Like we're still going back to the door. And he like said like a couple times, I'm like, yeah, bro, I know. I'm just trying to explore over here because I bet there's an item. And there's an item. And I was like, yeah, what up, son? I was right. That's why I walked over here. I'll give you some lip. And it's like, I wonder if the game, because you can explore the zones afterwards. Like you can go back. And I like how you mentioned that, where it's like you noticed that kind of hand holding in that aspect of the game, whereas like Peter and I noticed that hand holding more on like the puzzle side of things. So it's interesting that's though in like multiple features, like there's like a, hey, you're going the wrong way. It's like, I know, shut up. Or it's like, right. Hey, lower the level. It's like, I know, I'm aiming my axe at it. Don't tell me I'm about to do it right now. So
yeah, that's literally my only like problem with the game whatsoever. Like everything else, even the difficulty, I'm kind of okay with. I'm just like, all right, this is great.
Yeah.
Have either of you gotten to the point where you've changed characters?
I have just begun. That is where I last left off. So that was one thing I wanted to ask about too, was how, because I thought it was only you that had gotten to it. And so yeah, you do eventually get to play as Atreus. Not sure how long. I mean, Max, I think, is just like probably a chapter ahead of us, and there's multiple chapters. So I was like, I don't know if that's the only chapter, right, that you get to play as Atreus, or if it's back and forth. But how has that been? Because up until this point, we have been playing 4 games of God of War as only Kratos. And Atreus has been only the character ever in these games where you could even just press triangle to control. That's been the only extent. So how has that felt to play someone that's not Kratos?
It's honestly felt really great. I think Atreus plays very differently. He's a lot more agile, a lot faster. Whereas Kratos is he's just very strong, very like he has that heavy weight to him of like, like you can still be agile as Kratos, but you don't move as far.
Yeah.
With Atreus, I felt a lot freer. He's a lot lighter on his feet. It is very much from my interaction during that chapter playing as him that this is going to be something where we switch between the two of them multiple times throughout the game. I say that not as a spoiler, but just from as playing with Atreus, you see his skill tree. Yeah. And you're like, okay, well, obviously, like, this is a skill tree that's going to take me through the rest of the game. So it's like, we're going to kind of go back and forth between the two of them.
Did it feel comparable to, like, Witcher 3 when you would be Geralt and then, like, switch into Ciri during those kind of, like, flashback moments? What is, like, a similar kind of, like, it flows really well and, like, felt pretty good? Like, because Ciri felt different because one,
Yeah.
she too was more agile and had her spells like phasing and stuff. Is it like a similar experience?
It is. It's a very similar. That's a great comparison actually, because Atreus, like, you have the different gameplay, but it is very much dubbed down, right? Like, you don't have that same kind of customization that Kratos has, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, you have the bow. You don't really have, like, differences in armor or weapon sets, really, to change, like Kratos has. What's really cool with Atreus is that his main weapon, right, is his bow. And you use different abilities to long-range attack foes. But you can also run up to them and attack them with the bow itself, like almost like physically. Which is kind of cool. And you have your own side character, just like Kratos has Atreus, who you can use the square button with him to fight enemies, which is really funny.
Cool.
And it's hilarious. There's so many great moments playing as Atreus where you can see that he's really trying hard to be like his dad, and he's nothing like his dad. Which kind of continually pushed me in the direction of a theory I have that I won't put here. But like, there's a great moment. It's not really a spoiler, but I wanted to mention it because you may not see it. Where like, playing as Atreus in Midgard, he finds his first, like, you know, hack silver chest, just the lowest tier chest, right? That Kratos normally, like, punches through.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Atreus goes up to it and he tries to punch through it. And it literally looks like he almost broke his wrist. He's just,
Yeah, he does not have the strength. He had that rage though. Like, he did, because in the first game he does get that what's Kratos' rage called? Or maybe is it just called rage?
Something
it's
like
called
that.
Yeah, it's just like
Spartan
rage.
Spartan Rage.
Yeah, Spartan Rage. Because Atreus does get Spartan Rage. We see it whenever, I think he was fighting Thor's kids, right? Was that when he got it?
Was
I don't think it's
saving his dad. Like,
I wouldn't say it's Spartan rage. It's definitely God rage. It's some form of, you know, his God ability. He can have that. But we have to remember that Atreus is, like you said, he's very different from Kratos. He has shape-shifting abilities. He has different arrow abilities. He has the ability to summon monsters. Like, his skill set is completely different from his father's. In good ways. Like, I loved playing.
For sure.
I loved playing as Atreus. You have to be a lot more careful playing as him because when he gets hit,
stat wise, like low defense.
Low defense. Absolutely low defense.
Makes sense.
He's faster, like I said, and his attacks actually still hit really hard.
That's good.
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
And I hope I don't know if this is going to be a thing, but I hope in the future we get to shapeshift into animals when you play as Atreus, which it would be so cool to change into a bear and fight.
Oh yeah.
Like, I don't know if that would happen, but like when that moment happened at the beginning of the game, I was stunned. I was like, "Oh,
I know."
Like,
I know.
Was like, "Oh my god!"
Because that it's like a druid and like WoW. So in WoW, you play as like druids who can shapeshift onto bears, and like there's like lions or tigers. I mean, and there's like a couple other like forms that you can phase into, and he definitely has that. He definitely has that like druid spell set, very like nature based, which, seeing like how things were with the giants and just like from how the lore seems, that like makes sense. They do seem to be more of like people of the land. And like, you know, Kratos, he's just different. I mean, I think he has Kratos's like hard-headedness and whatnot, some of which is probably just from adventuring with his dad, especially in that first game. Like, he's picked up a lot just from seeing how his dad is and like going through that whole thing and whatnot. But yeah, I'm glad to hear that it's like fun to play him. I was curious to see like how it was gonna be, especially with like knowing that he just had like a bow and arrow. And it's like, how does like it already doesn't feel like it does much damage for you when you're playing as Kratos, because it really just helps you like stun and make that like stamina meter go up and stuff. But that's cool though that it's like it's enjoyable. I'm glad to hear that for sure.
Oh yeah, it's great. I won't spend too much longer on it, but I mean, is it okay to kind of share a theory that I've already shared with you, Tyler? But I'm wondering what Peter's.
Yeah, I mean, nobody. I mean, we haven't finished the game, so it's not like you're spoiling anything. It's all just theories.
I don't think that Atreus / Loki is the biological son of Kratos.
You heard it here, folks. Episode 19. We'll come back to this one day and see if Max is right.
Some of our viewers have probably already finished the game. We're taking so long, but
great theory though. I mean, I like that theory actually.
It would explain to me why he's so cold towards him in the first game, why he's so detached from they call him Atreus, but his true name is Loki. Why would you rename your child? Like if his name was Loki, just call him Loki. This is why I truly think that he and I forget his wife's name.
Faye, I think, right?
Faye, thank you. I think they literally find him or are given him in some way, shape, or form to raise, to guard, to protect. I think that the whole shield around their home that they've had in place for so long was for Atreus. I think he is the key to Ragnarok. I think that Kratos knows much more than he is willing to say. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's going to come out because Atreus is so, you can even tell in these first few hours, he is so hell-bent on finding the answers. How do I stop Ragnarok? How do I save our world? And his father is kind of, he's being there for him, but I just get this sense that Kratos knows more.
Yeah.
And we know that he knows more because at the end of the first game, he truly sees in the future that at some point, it's still unsure of what that picture represents, but we see a form of Kratos lying on the ground, which we assume he's dying, with Atreus holding him. Was it Atreus who killed him, or is he holding his father after he's, fought a great battle or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
Either way, there's that, and I truly believe he knows more about what it means to be Loki. And I think Atreus is going to find out, not from him, and it's really going to cause a rift between them.
Yeah, and based on my limited knowledge of Loki, based on of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, at least the Loki in that universe was also an orphan, which I assume Marvel does their research. They know their shiz. And maybe historically, Lokis have always been told as orphans who have been brought in by Odin. Is Loki the same Loki that we knew from Marvel in the sense of he's Thor's brother, not so brother, and
right.
But and maybe it's one of those Odin didn't even know about him kind of a thing and was casted out, or yeah, maybe they did find him in a forest, maybe he drifted along the river like Moses. No idea.
Right.
No idea. But I like that theory. I think that's really cool. And I'm curious to see what it's going to be like. I don't know when I will finish this game. I don't think it'll be by the end of the year, just because Pokemon has been taking up a lot of my time, but I am curious to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, I was going to say we can definitely move on to Pokemon. I know this has taken up a lot of our time, but
oh no, it's all good. Yeah, it was the game that we all played, so I wanted to make sure we all talked about it.
I agree. I don't think I'm going to have this game finished by the end of the year, mainly because I have to play it when Rithi's with me because she likes the story and and I have to wait for her. Yeah. But I'm hoping to finish it before end of February because once Hogwarts Legacy comes out, I'm not going to be playing much else, bro.
I know. Yeah, that is straight facts. Hogwarts Legacy looks legit.
Yes.
Well, cool. Yeah, we can definitely segue into the second. This this will probably be like the last game discussion that we have. The other game that we have been primarily playing, at least Peter and myself, has been the new Pokemon game, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I own Pokemon Scarlet. I own Pokemon Violet. Peter has Pokemon Scarlet. So Peter, I will ask you the same question again. What has been your first impressions with arguably the buggiest Nintendo Pokemon game there has ever been? What is, not to say that's a bad thing, it's just is arguably probably the worst game from a bug standpoint.
Oh my gosh! It only I can only think back to one other game that might be more buggy than that, and there was a trailer of it. I don't remember the name, but it was really odd. But anyways,
that was the most informative, non-informative thing ever.
I know, it was just.
I have no idea. It's like, yeah, it was that game that had a trailer one time.
It was recent, and it was like just something about like you get these. It was a 3D platform. You get all these different powers. That was.
Is it that girl with the big top hat or whatever?
Sounds familiar. Like there was somebody with a big top hat in the game. Anyways,
so your first impressions of Pokemon Scarlet.
First impressions of Pokemon Scarlet were fantastic. I love like how they gave the personalities to all the Pokemon that you first meet. I really love Sprigatito.
Sprigatito. Sprigatito. I can't remember.
Is that the fire one?
No, it's the cat.
The grass type. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
And I think the fire one would have been my second choice, but I really enjoyed all of its evolutions, and I really enjoyed the characters and the academy. I thought I would really dislike that. I thought it was going to be just going off of like the last few games. I wasn't a big fan of the storyline, and I was mostly a fan of just like the Pokemon formula where you just sort of like go to the gyms and then level up your Pokemon, and then in the like battle and get new moves, evolve your Pokemon, and find shinies. But like everything to do with like story and like discovery and learning about the world that you're in, they actually pull it off in like a way that made me want to dig deeper and actually sort of like back in the old games when I would just like run up to trash cans and I would press A because I want to like see if there's anything hidden and just like discover every little thing and see if there's any little secrets. Like this game made me want to do that, even in an open world. One particular amazing thing that I only found out because I was unwilling to do it, because I just sort of wrote it off at first, was like going back to the academy. They have like all these different classes that you can take, and
oh, cool.
There's actually like probably over like 40 classes you can take, and it's not just like typical. Some of it's a little like straightforward, like basic Pokemon stuff. Like fire is weak against water, but like some of it's like teaches you about like the world that you're in and the history behind it. It actually like progresses the story. It's like not required progression, but it helps make it like deeper. You like get a deeper understanding of the story through it. And so that part is really fun. And then you also like they took a lot of elements from a lot of different games I've noticed. And I know you haven't gone through the whole game, Tyler, so I don't want to say too much, but one particular thing I like is that they make the academy almost like Persona. And I'll just say like where you just you can sort of build rapport with it's like a very soft form of Persona. It doesn't get into as deep connections as you do like where the day changes and it based on who you interact with, and they come to help you in different ways, but you actually get to like know the teachers at the academy, and they'll
Cool.
start to like develop rapport with you and like have little mini stories of their own. So that part's really cool.
That's
And like
awesome.
obviously, like Tyler said, there's so many bugs in the game. It is, the frame rate's like probably the first thing you notice. It's going to be with you the whole game. That's probably the saddest part. I guess it's just the Switch's years are starting to show. And I know a lot of people out there are saying that it's like the development should have been more, should have taken longer, things like that. And I'm not sure what it is. I know, like, I guess these games, Legends Arceus and this game came back to back pretty quickly. So I'm not sure how much water that actually holds, but for what it's worth, among all these bad things, this game shines through as like it's one of my favorite Pokemon games of all time now.
Yeah, if you haven't logged in, there actually is a patch today. That's helped a lot. The game actually does flow a lot more smoother. Instead of like 2 FPS for some of the NPCs, they run at about 15 to 30, which wouldn't.
That's good.
Seriously, there are some NPCs in like Mezagoza that like, bro, they were legit running at 2 FPS. It was depressingly just like you would see it and you're like, man, how did this pass? Some of that has changed. They've did some other changes, like NPCs actually now fade in and fade out, whereas before they just kind of like and like would appear. And that field of view has gotten a little bit better. So hopefully they made an announcement today, which I know Peter's probably just been like working all day. So I'm not trying to like debunk you by any means, but there is an update that came out today that has helped with it a lot. And for the first time ever, Pokemon is updating a game to perform better. And for another first time ever, they are saying that they're sorry that their game is underperforming. They apologized and are saying like, you know, we welcome like people telling us like what we need to change, because that was a concern, because there was a lot of reports, and I'll get into my first impressions. This is just kind of stemming off of Peter's thing, but there were a lot of news articles that were going out about the game saying that like, oh, Nintendo of America is claiming, or Game Freak, whoever it was, is like claiming that there's no reports from users saying that their game is like not running well, and that was like hitting the media in a pretty negative way. And so on November 30th at 10:06 p.m., which I'm assuming is our local time, Nintendo of America tweeted out saying a software update for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet version 1.1.0 will be released on 12.1. Please visit our website for more information. And they did say, we take the feedback from players seriously and will continue to work on improvements to the game, which is awesome. They haven't done that before, which is really cool to see. I am hoping, I'm hoping they don't just stop, because this game has outsold a lot of other games that like Nintendo, I think, has even just had. So I'm glad to see that they're continuing that. But I think it's like, it sold 10 million copies in just 3 days, and it broke every Nintendo record. 10 million, 3 days. It's insane.
So crazy.
But yeah, so they're improving. It's cool. It's, it really is like the first time that they're admitting like, hey, yeah, this sucks and we're going to try to fix it, which is cool. It still makes me mad, I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, I mean, like my first impressions, I agree with Peter. It has truly been probably one of my favorite Pokemon games I've ever been able to play. I was pretty optimistic whenever they would show trailers and stuff. There was a lot of questions on like, it's open world, like how empty is it going to feel? And I was optimistic, being like, I think it's going to be good. It'll be okay. And it really, it turned out well. Like with the game being as big as it is, you really do just like flow from town to town. Mesogosia, which is like the biggest part, that does have like you kind of phase in through like not a cutscene, but whatever it's called, like a loading screen. But the other zones, you really do just ride up there and you're in the new zone and stuff. And like buildings obviously have it, but the world itself feels so natural. Like you're walking around and there's just Pokemon like sleeping under a tree or literally hanging from a tree. Like there's a spider Pokemon that you can physically sit there, watch the spider walk across the ground, find a tree, walk up the tree, and then like hang from it. Like it feels really natural. Some Pokemon are aggressive and like, bro, you find a Primeape in there, homie has his fists up and he is gonna punch you in the face, right? And then there's like, but then there's others who just like are curious. Like a lot of those like baby kind of Pokemon, like Azurals and like Fidos and stuff, they're like curious on you and they'll just like follow you and just stare at you. And so the world feels natural. Like I was a little nervous because Sword and Shield's open world area, I personally hated. I think Peter and I apparently are on the low end of that, because I don't know, a lot of people say that was great, but I thought that didn't feel fun to me. I thought the way that like Pokemon phased in was weird, and there was still like some Pokemon hidden in the grass. I don't know. I didn't like it. It didn't flow well. And then in Legends Arceus, I liked how it was open world with the Pokemon, but there was a lot of zones where like there was nothing. Like they were still kind of bound to these like grass areas. Whereas in this game, there's none of that like hidden stuff. Like Pokemon are just out there. There are some Pokemon that'll like hide, but that's like part of their thing. Like the Grivard Pokemon, he hides under the ground and you just kind of see his like candle wick and then he like pops out. But like,
that's awesome.
That is like, yeah, it just like feels natural. You'll be walking to a town and like Pokemon will be sitting outside like the fence post, just chilling and just like waiting there. Or like you'll go to like a watering hole and there's literally some Pokemon around and like they'll jump in the water, swim, jump back out. It's just really fun. And like it is hands down the buggiest game that I have not just played this year, but the buggiest game that I've played since Cyberpunk, and I just can't stop playing it. Like, my experience with the bugs are just about the same amount that I experienced with Cyberpunk, but I returned Cyberpunk because I just couldn't handle that. At least with like Pokemon, granted, Cyberpunk literally became unplayable for me, which was frustrating. I still can like play, like if you play it docked, it's a lot better anyways. But yeah, there's a lot and it does bother me. There's some where I'm just kind of like, dude, that's just bad. Like the amount of times that I'll start a Pokemon battle and my camera is like underneath the ground and I'm just staring at like uncompressed code or whatever. It's like all the time. It's like, there's no way this wasn't figured out, right? Or apparently a lot of the bugs happen on online mode, which are hilarious. There are so many funny YouTube videos out there of like bug mashups of what's going on in the online space in Pokemon. Things like eyes popping out of people like expanding like 100 times the size. I don't know if like nobody tested online features at all, but it is buggy as heck going online. I haven't done it. I haven't played with anybody, but that's where I've noticed most of the funny bugs exist out there. But yeah, it did frustrate me because I was like, man, I felt like Pokemon Sword and Shield, it was good. People liked it. But nobody like I shouldn't say nobody. That's too much. But a mass majority didn't love it. Some of the new Pokemon they introduced were like okay. It was a fine game. And it's not that they were on thin ice by no means. It's like Pokemon, but people were still like, okay, like what is next? Like you got to bring us something, right? Then they did the remake of Diamond and Pearl. A lot of people think that was terrible. Whatever, that's fine. I don't care. And then it's like, okay, so what are you going to do now? And then they bring out Legends Arceus, which is not a core game. They made that note. It is still part of like a spin-off series. They show that and people are like, holy crap, this is kind of cool. Like, what are you guys doing? And then when Scarlet and Violet comes out and they like announce it, you look at it and you're like, man, this is Sword and Shield plus Legends Arceus combined into what we think could be amazing. And it's been great. It's been amazing. I'm just like so surprised by how many bugs there has been. And I've played every Pokemon game. I've played every single Pokemon game since Pokemon Yellow. And I'm shocked. I'm like, man, this just seems like crazy how buggy it is, especially to have like the Nintendo. Like, I know it's not a Nintendo game. Like, it's not, it's like Mario or Zelda. Like, Nintendo themselves didn't make it. But it's like Pokemon has such that relationship with Nintendo where like you see Pokemon, you think Nintendo, right? And so it's like knowing that, like, man, that got put out here. That's wild to me. And I don't know.
I think, and I'll just touch on that real quick, but like, I think there's a lot of factors to that you and Peter both brought up that I think just from my history of knowledge of like watching games being released and things like that, I think that this was kind of like a perfect storm kind of thing. I think the fact that both of you have said that this is one of the glitchiest games that you've ever played, and even with that frustration, it's also one of the best Pokemon games you've ever played, that is a huge testament to Game Freak and the ability that they have to make these types of games. I think that's pretty incredible. Because other games that would come out like that would be eaten alive. Like Cyberpunk 100%. Was eaten like it would be not. Yeah. That game would be like destroyed. But like, Game Freak has that goodwill with its base, and that has been damaged a little bit, I think, with this release. But I think there's a lot of factors to that. We have to remember that like within the last 18 months, less than 18 months, Game Freak has released 3 games.
Yeah.
Like they came out with Shining Pearl, Diamond, like I think late last year.
Yeah.
Like right around Christmas of last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think I got it for a birthday present last year from Julie. So yeah, around December.
And it was just one of those things where it was a reiteration of it, but they were like playing with the chibi kind of idea. Then they came out with Arceus. And then immediately announced Scarlet and Violet, thank you.
And Pokemon Snap.
Oh, that's, and it's like, I forgot about that, yeah.
Yeah, and Pokemon Snap, which kind of came and went. But it's really, like, that's not a normal turnaround that most companies can do without something falling through the cracks. Even Game Freak. And Game Freak is probably the richest game publisher in the world. like they literally have more money than any other game publisher. Like, I've looked this up online. They have made on their games more money, probably 10 times fold, from the following company below them. Kind of like, it's just like they have more. Like, it's incredible. Like, Pokemon is a lifestyle now. Like, there's Pokemon Go, there's Pokemon
Masters, there's like the cafe,
Unite, there's going to be Pokemon Sleep unless they cancel that. There's Pokemon Toothbrush. I don't know. Literally you can live your life Pokemon.
Yeah.
And, I think that they just kind of flew too close to the sun in a way with this one. And this is very much, to me, feels like a year of transition for Game Freak. They are very much trying to push Pokemon into the 21st century of like, okay, like we need to kind of bring this into an open world space. And they did that a little bit with Sword and Shield. Like I've seen, like you were saying, Tyler, they're iterating on it little by little each and every time. And I think this is the closest they've gotten, but also because I found this out, Game Freak has to hit their deadlines because they are the most kind of like the games they produce give Nintendo the most money that they get for their gross financial year. And so I don't know if there's ever been a Pokemon game that's been delayed. Like, it literally, like, when they say it's coming out, like, it comes out that day. It comes out.
Yeah, Game Freak isn't, like, they're not owned by Pokemon, are they? Or are they owned by them?
That I don't know. I feel like it's
See.
more of a partnership, but
Oh,
I don't.
Game Freak subsidiary is the
Subsidiary?
Pokemon Company.
Oh, okay. I
Interesting.
don't
Oh,
know.
so the Pokemon Company, but the Pokemon Company is owned by Nintendo, Game Freak, and Creatures. Creatures Inc. is a Japanese video game development company affiliated with Nintendo and the Pokemon Company. Huh. Interesting. So,
Yeah, I think
Well,
Creatures shows up on some of the older games when it's like going through the intro segment, and I think it like
sections?
flashes like a little wavy like the
oh
creatures.
yeah, interesting. Creatures
yeah.
Creatures says that it specifically made the 1998 Pokemon trading card game for the Game Boy Color, Pokemon Ranger for the DS, Detective Pikachu from 2016, and the
Yep.
Pokepark from the Wii. That's
Oh,
like Creatures like specific ones, I guess, that they like
That's
branded on themselves. But yeah, so
hilarious.
yeah,
But,
I think they really saved themselves with certain things too. Like they nailed, in my opinion, which I was gonna ask Peter about this one. Like there's 400 Pokemon in the game. Between the new Pokemon and then the reoccurring Pokemon, my goodness, is it amazing. Like the new Pokemon, I love them. They're so cool. And then the ones that they chose to bring back, I'm like, dude, yes, I'm so happy you picked that one. Like it's so wild. There's always been like those Pokemon where you see them in these other games, you're like, bro, why'd you bring that guy in? Like, it's like, okay, Gulpin's in the game. I think if I had to pick, Gulpin would be like the only one where I'd be like, oh, like why'd you bring a Gulpin in? But like in other games, there's more of those. There'd be so many where I'm like, oh gosh, why'd you pick this again? Why'd you pick this one again? But in Scarlet and Violet, so often I'll get into a new zone and I'm like, oh, let's go. They brought like Snover in the game, or oh snap, Snorunt's in this game. Or you're like walking around, you see like a wild Persian. You're like, oh, that's so cool. There's Persian and like Zora, and I don't know. I just think they did that really well. But specifically on their new stuff, it is legit. Their new Pokemon are cool. Some of the evolutions are kind of lame, but for the most part, I think that's also been helping as far as like, because it's so buggy, but the Pokemon are like really likable. But what do you feel on that one? How have you thought about the new Pokemon, Peter?
oh, I really love that they didn't include, and people might really hate me for saying this, but I'm really glad Snorlax wasn't in the game. He has been
Oh man,
he
yeah,
has been in Arceus. He's been in Sword and Shield. And I mean, I think he's probably been in like almost every single game. And he might be in this game. It's just that he's not there right up front.
Yeah.
He's not I don't know if he's in the game or not
I can
yet,
look it up.
but it seems like he's not. And I guess that's just
No,
one
he's
example,
not.
but yeah, he has he's kind of just like one of those Pokemon that I see that I'm just like he's like, I feel like a lot of people are gonna catch him and keep him in their parties because he's sort of like Charizard, you know. He's
Trademark.
Yeah,
a
iconic.
trademark. Everybody thinks of Snorlax.
Yeah,
And then you have ones like I think Dunsparce is probably like one of the only ones I would be like, ugh, they had Dunsparce in this game.
yeah.
Um,
Which they did it
but,
because
like-
they gave him the evolution, but yeah, it is kind of
Yeah.
like, wow, Dunsparce, huh?
Everyone else,
Wow, Dunsparce, huh?
I really like the positioning of all the Pokemon too. In Sword and Shield, really didn't like seeing like fully evolved, like the way they there's like a clear pattern that like you just knew if you looked off into the distance and you saw like an isolated island on
Oh,
on
yeah.
a pond, that in the middle of that island
Yeah.
would be like a level 50 like
Yeah.
like
Something.
Snorlax.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
something that's
something
like
big.
and it was like the appeal of it at first was like wow, but like it quickly grew old. It was like, and then you
Yeah.
just saw them like, I think the distance between each one of those was like maybe 5 feet.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it
You
was
just
far.
start seeing like level 50s when you're only like level 10 all over the place, and it's like, yeah, don't get near those. That makes it challenging when it's really just like No.
Yeah, which now they surround themselves. Like you'll see
Yes.
evolution with non-evolution, and it's almost like a pack. It's like
Yes.
a lion and the lionesses almost type of
Yes.
Oh,
vibe.
that's cool. I
And
like that.
they'll like kind of spawn around, but they're only like certain packs like that. Other ones you'll just see evolutions just roaming around with non-evolutions just freely.
It reminds me so much. It just makes me think of the Pokemon show. Like that just seems so natural after watching
Yeah.
the show. Like it's
Yeah.
like you would run into packs of Venusaur with Ivysaurs all around them or Bulbasaurs, and it's like, yeah, that makes sense for that Pokemon. They're family oriented or something like
Yeah.
that. Or like,
Yeah.
but that's so cool. It's so hard because like I haven't honestly been into Pokemon since Ruby and Sapphire. That's kind of where I fell off. And I tried Shining Pearl, jumping back in, and I got pretty far in it. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like it was fun, but I have not been able to be as involved in Pokemon as the both of you have, I would say, which I feel like in some ways makes me really sad because I still really love Pokemon. And like when you have those moments, like hearing that Ash is now like he has reached his dream, he is the greatest trainer in the world.
Yeah.
Like that almost like got me emotional because I was just like, oh my gosh, like this was a moment 25 years in the making, and here he is still 10 years old, like becoming the greatest Pokemon trainer of all time in the TV show. And it's like, where's Pokemon gonna go from here? Like, are we like the show ends at the end of this year? Are we gonna? Is that the end? Like, are they like? I assume not, because they're probably never gonna end this thing as long as people are here for it. But you know, it'll be interesting to see. Like, it's just always interesting. They keep finding ways to grab both adult that grew up with Pokemon and new people alike. They have that secret sauce.
Yeah.
That no other game has, honestly.
Yeah, this game has finally added. It's not a difficulty like I would like. You do have free reign to truly go wherever you want. Some things are blocked behind like needing your Miraidon or Koraidon to have like its upgrades to get to it, but for the most part, you really can go anywhere. And so like in theory, you know, you could go to like gym number 6 when you have no badges, and like you would probably get utterly annihilated. And then, but if you did win it somehow by like cheesing it, then you kind of get like over leveled, and then you go back down to gym 1. But there's like certain things in place to try to help limit you. Like the game is open world, yes, but Pokemon definitely has a clear path that it wants you to take. It names the zones like zone 1, 2, 3, 4, all that kind of stuff. It does do things like, hey, you have 2 badges now, so you can now train and catch up to Pokemon to like level 30. And like, if you want to go beyond that, you got to get a 3rd badge. And like, oh, you want to get there, you got to get your 4th badge. So it's like Pokemon clearly has like a path that it wants you to take. But it is fun to see that like it's enough open world, because I think if this game was like a Skyrim open world, it'd be too much. But then if it was like a Horizon Zero Dawn, where it's like, or like even like a God of War, where it's like it's almost forcing you to take a path, it wouldn't be enough. Like I think it's like a nice happy medium for Pokemon, because you said it right, Max. This game has to appeal to kids, but also it's gonna appeal to adults too, and like they know that. And so it's like, how do you do that, right? Because like if I gave my niece 2 games, I gave her Skyrim and I gave her Pokemon, it's like, I'm not gonna make her play Skyrim because it's a high rated game, but just saying in theory, like an open game like that,
very different style games. Yeah,
it's just like it's so open, and she'd be like, oh, what do I do? It's like, oh, do whatever you want. It's like, well, what does that mean, right? And it's like, well, with Pokemon, it's like, what do I do? Just like walk forward, start like catching some Pokemon and stuff. Like, it helps her out, and then us as adults, we're like, oh man, let's go explore this world, woo! woo, and like we're like going out and everything, and it's just they have found what I think is like almost the special sauce of what they need to do. And it's going to be exciting to see like from here now what does that mean for the Pokemon franchise, specifically like the video game franchise. Like now that Scarlet and Violet are a thing, they're here. I think what's going to really help determine that is going to be truly like how much they do continue to update the game. Do they add like DLC that's going to be like fun or whatnot? Like, will it actually be like upgrades to the game that's going to be exciting? But we'll definitely see. But I think we got to cut this soon. Peter's actually falling asleep while he's sitting here on the podcast, so I think we've hit our limit on our topics tonight. So we'll definitely end it here soon. We did give Peter, or at least I told him that he had to have something ready, because at the end of our podcast, we always like to say something that we recommend, a media of some sort. So I will kick that off, and by saying my recommended thing of the week, which is probably like of the month, who knows? But my recommendation is to watch Star Wars Andor. Hands down, the coolest Star Wars show I have watched. I've watched them all. I've watched all the shows. I've almost fully cut up on even like the Clone Wars and like most of the animated stuff. But like, it is the best. It is so freaking good. It was like the best 12 episodes ever. So if you are a Star Wars fan, and if you are interested in things that are not just like Jedis with lightsabers, you're gonna love this. It's about like espionage and like spies and like just, it's all about the rebels, and it is dope. And like some people may be like, oh well, like we saw Rogue One, so we know that Cassian Andor dies. Bro, it doesn't matter. It's so good. Right. This is his origin story, as well as like the rebels origin story. That is what Andor is about. And it's not the end. Season 1, I'm just gonna let you know, is not the end. There is setup for a season 2. Prior to this, Obi-Wan was my favorite Star Wars show. I love Darth Vader. I think Darth Vader is dope. Not as much as Darth Maul, but I think Vader is amazing. I think Obi-Wan is amazing. And so that was my favorite show. I thought that show was so well, and I did not think anything was going to top that. Truly, especially after the one fight scene. My gosh, was that great in Obi-Wan, which I could talk about that for years. But Andor is incredible. If you're a Star Wars fan, that is my recommendation of the week. So, Peter, awesome. We'll kick it off to you so that you can go to sleep soon.
First of all, I can't believe Star Wars Andor is already out.
Yeah, it just finished. I think like last week or 2 weeks ago is when like the final episode came out.
Yeah. Wow. My gosh. I really need to keep up with that stuff.
Yeah.
Because that sounds exciting.
Yeah. 3 months long of shows, I guess, because it was one episode a week.
Something like that.
So my recommendation for the week is Better Call Saul. I have been binge watching that for a while now, and it is sort of something that you probably want to watch. I guess this sort of means that I would recommend Breaking Bad. But it is something I put off for a long time, and I finally got around to watching it after hearing so many people talk about it over the years, including my parents. And it's just a wild ride. It's definitely not for the faint of heart, but it is just it always keeps you on edge. It is always a twist at every turn, and it's the writing and the film style is just, I don't know. I almost want to say it reminds me of this might be a really bad comparison, but like it's sort of just like, it's really highly detailed, and that makes me think of Chernobyl, which is another series I really love. And just like there's so many small details, and just for a series, with multiple seasons, like they just keep that quality, where like every little thing means something, every little thing an actor does, and all the actors in the show, and actresses are just phenomenal at what they do, and in making those little making that little magic happen with everything. So and I'm very surprised to see Better Call Saul as a series, because I've never really thought Bob Odenkirk could be such a like long-term actor in like a series in which he continues that magic, where like every little detail matters, and every like in acting really matters, like staying true to your character. And it's sort of about his backstory as a character. It sort of takes place before Breaking Bad, but it definitely has a lot of references to what happens in Breaking Bad, which is why it's definitely important to watch that first. So that has kept me very entertained for a long while. There's a lot of content between those two series and a movie.
And it just ended, right? Didn't it just end?
Yeah, it just ended.
Yeah, in 2022.
Well, that's perfect. I didn't even realize that because I'm on.
Yeah, you picked the perfect time to watch it. I'm
Yeah.
telling you.
That's cool.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Awesome. All right, Max, finish us off. What is your recommendation of the week?
Oh, I mean, Chainsaw Man. I mean, can it be anything else? Like, I just like this. I am blown away by how. Where does Mappa get off? Like, what is this budget? Who is financing them?
It's
like,
true. It's kind of insane.
Like, are they doing tax evasion? What like UFO Table was? Like,
the
what's going
fights
on
are
here?
very like cinematic style. Like this is a movie fights.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
As someone who has read the entire story of Chainsaw Man, it's very short. Like this is going to be a show that will be over in 3 seasons of 12 episodes. Like it's there's not much. It is just such an emotional show, such a bonkers show. Like it's just like if I would define Chainsaw Man, this is probably the closest anime I've ever seen that like has found the soul of Quentin Tarantino to me. Like
That's a good
with
explanation. Wow.
Like Quentin Tarantino meets like Devil Hunter or whatever. Like Devil May Cry. I don't know. Like you know like and I mean, I'm sure all of our viewers know what Chainsaw Man is at this point. I mean, it's really taken the world by storm. It's the new Demon Slayer, I guess you could say. 100%. But like, it's just really good. We're about 8 episodes in, 4 more to go, and we've really hit the moment with this latest episode where we have truly hit the main story. Like this is. The episode 8 defines what Chainsaw Man is, and what that is loss. It's struggling to survive, and what are you living for? Is really one of the main guiding principles of the story, especially with Denji, the main character, who had a terrible childhood, like horrific, and really just kind of has the dumbest like things to live for, like to like move on to like the next thing. Yeah. It's like very comedic until it's not. And I think that's one of the great things about the story. Like Chainsaw Man is a very sad story. It's a very heartbreaking story in a lot of ways because it's very funny. Like the comedy of this story is great, and I think it's one of the shining aspects of it. And it needs that levity, but it very quickly becomes kind of sad and pitying for the main character of Denji. It's like, oh, like that's what you want out of life? Like that's all you care about? And like you kind of see as the story progresses how he's realizing that in the moments that he gets the things that he thought were the greatest thing he could ever hope for. Yeah. And I hope you both are watching it still too, but like it is and for anyone watching our podcast, please give this show a try. It's definitely not for the faint of heart, like Better Call Saul. I would say even more so. But like it's it is a story that will grip you if you let it, especially if you make it to the end. It's a beautiful, cathartic journey, and I think it really kind of rejuvenates and has reestablished what a shonen anime can be. Like I think shows like My Hero and even Demon Slayer, in a sense, have kind of like built off of the pathways that One Piece, Naruto, Bleach have given them on shonen, and have really leveled up in that sort of excellence and pacing. Chainsaw Man is probably the newest shonen I've seen that has reinvented what being a shonen anime means, or what kind of story you can tell. And it really makes me excited for what the artist and what the author of Chainsaw Man has in store next. So please watch Chainsaw Man or read it. Either way, if you can't wait for the anime, because it's a gripping tale for sure.
Yeah. Make sure that our listeners, you don't listen to or watch any of these with your children. So any of our recommendations, unless it's your vibe. Hey, I don't judge parenting. That's just our suggestion. Don't watch the 3 things we just talked about. Watch it yourself. Just try not to watch them with children around. But
is Andor even pretty like mature?
Yeah, it's mature in the sense of like the themes behind it. There is just like blatant murder, and there is like a bunch of like brutality from the Empire, because they're just like terrible human beings. So the themes underlining are not great. There are people who are just like there's literally one scene where he was like, a guy was like, "Hey, what do you want me to do with so and so? I don't care. It's up to you. I want to have him hanged so that everyone can see and remember." And it's like, okay, cool. That's where the Empire. It makes sense because the Empire sucks. But yeah, so try not to watch these shows with the children around. But yeah, so thank you all very, very much for tuning in. Peter, thank you so much for joining us. We definitely will love to have you back. We are also going to be trying to do something next week, potentially during the Game Awards. So stay tuned for that stuff. That could be kind of cool. We'll see how things come out. But yeah, you can find us at the Calling All Nerds tag, whether it be on Twitter. That's about it, because we don't really use it too much. But hey, you can find us on Twitter at Calling All Nerds. You can find our podcast, like I said, on Spotify, on Apple, and now on Anchor as well. All the links will be in the description of our YouTube videos. You can watch us live on YouTube and join in on the pre-show stuff that happens. If you tuned in today, you heard 5 minutes of just pure chaos. So you can watch us live on YouTube, also at Calling All Nerds. And you can also, let's see, I think those are all our things. I'm working on Google Podcasts to come soon. Links to everything, though, always going to be in the descriptions, always going to be in the shows. If you are listening to us on one of your favorite podcast feeds, please give us a review, give us a thumbs up, follow us so you can join us on our journey. All those things do truly help. And before Peter just snoozes on his keyboard, we shall all say goodbye.
All right, till next time.
See ya.